You ever heard them say truck drivers are a dime a dozen? That ship has sailed. So I've been sitting there talking to some friends of mine about this, and one of the things we kind of came to the conclusion is that trucking's hit a wall. Truck drivers are not a dime a dozen, and if you have too many jobs, you're kind of done. And this guy I know, he's finally at the end. I'm surprised it took him this long. I've known him for 20 years, and the only jobs available to him are bottom feeding jobs, the ones they know that he's not going to be around for. And it's kind of interesting. Coming back from Hutchinson, I went car shopping and ended up buying a Glock. Go figure. There comes a time when your job history catches up with you. And in this business there is a lot of job hopping, and we understand that. It is part of the industry. You know, you're going to have one job you stay at for quite some time, and then that job will end or something will happen and you have to change jobs. You go to another job, it doesn't work out. You go to another job, it either does or not work out, and then finally the second or third job sticks, and you're there for quite a few years, hopefully. Then you got the other guys that are making a series of lateral moves trying to get a pay raise. The problem is that every time they do this, their net worth goes down, their credit gets destroyed, and that pay raise never happens. It always looks good on paper. They're not willing to put in the time to get the money. But every new job is going to be, you know, better than the old one. This is a great place. This is a great place. Blah, blah, blah. I make so much money. Really? Is that why you got a 450 credit score and $3 in the bank? You know, I see this a lot, and I've talked about this quite a bit too. You just kind of have to get to the point where you've got to figure out what you want. These companies will give you exactly what you want, but don't complain when it ain't what you asked for. Now, I understand that people want what they want. I get it. But what ends up happening is that you're, I don't know if you'd call it greediness or just sheer arrogance or narcissism. It just comes right around and bites you. It came back around and bit my buddy. And I saw this coming, and like I said, I was surprised it took this long. But he was looking at a couple. He's still wanting to lease a truck. I said, dude, just why do you want to lease a truck? He says, I got to make some money. I said, you that broke? He's like, I ain't doing well. And I'm like, how do you think this is going to help your situation? This is going to double your expenses, and you're not going to make any more money. So he gets a hold of four different companies. Swift never called him back, I don't think. Trekker, too many jobs. Navajo offered him, but if you're going to lease on it, Navajo, that's a scam if I've ever seen one. Holy crap. What a pile of crap that lease is. Good night. If you lease a Navajo, you're just dumb. I mean, you don't have to be quirky to understand that that's a bad idea at that place. And then there was a fourth one, and Dart. Yeah, we're not even going to go into that. I've seen their ads. And everybody just kind of turned him down. So I asked him, I said, what are you going to do? He says, well, I guess I'm going to stay where I'm at for a while. And I just got blunt with him. I said, dude, you're just going to have to give up a few of these things that you want to do, you know. I want to make all this money, but I got to be home for this, or I got to be home for that. I got to be home for this. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's fun social stuff, but it's not, it's counterproductive. I mean, it's just things you have to give up if you want to make a paycheck. Well, like I was talking about that owner-operator screaming he isn't making any money, but he's leaves every Monday and is home every Friday. Wonders why he can't break $1,800. I broke $4,000 last week. I broke $4,000 the week before. Why? Well, I stay out and work. You know, I don't know what to tell you, you know, but back to this guy, I just got real blunt with him. I said, dude, you're going to have to figure it out. I said, because you can't have everything you want, and, you know, you've been in this game long enough to know how it works, and why you acting like you knew. That's the part that really just always amazes me, is so many of these guys just act like it's their first day. You know better. You've been doing this long enough. At 5 years in this business, I knew better. You know, the old days are done. You got to change with the times, and you got to roll with the flow. I mean, all the cliches aside, you just got to figure out what you're doing, because, well, trucking's fluid and it changes all the time. But if you want to make money, you got to stay current, and staying current requires you to stay in it. And if you're sitting there changing your situation over and over and over, you're never advancing yourself. You're never advancing your knowledge. You're just changing the name on your door. I mean, what good is that? So a lot of times when you're in the situation that my buddy's in, you're stuck working for whoever will hire you. And they're bottom feeders. They know you're not going to stick around, so they know they don't have to pay you. They also know you don't have a choice. I didn't realize he'd changed jobs again. He came to work and found out they'd cleaned out the truck. I got the story from him. Knowing him, I know there's a lot more to this story, but I'm not even going to pry. I don't care. But, you know, suddenly they just fired him, came into work, and truck was cleaned out. And sounds to me like his boss wasn't having none of it. Of course, what he explained to me about his boss was kind of I've worked for guys like that, and his boss is a bottom feeder. Go figure. Seems like the cheaper the money, the more demanding they are. I've noticed that it's like the less they pay, the more they demand. And I'm like, dude, the pay needs to represent the work. But hey, that's just not reality a lot of times. So reality's hit him. I don't know if he's realized that yet or not, but he's out of options. He's just out of options. He's done. There might be one or two places he can go, but he's at the age now to where his situation is to the point that he's just done. I mean, where he's at is where he's at. That's the only way I know how to say it. You can't. He wasted his youth and wasted his formidable years chasing dollars that weren't there, thinking he could sit there and bull his way and bull his way and bull his way. Well, that only works, for the first, that only works till about age 28, maybe, if you're lucky. After that, you're just a pain in the ass to whoever you work for. That's just the reality. And truthfully, nobody wants to work with a pain in the ass. Ask me how I know. It's just, where does somebody like that go from now? And I know everybody out here, y'all know people like that. There's nothing you can do for this guy. He's done. His career is over. He can still drive truck, don't get me wrong. But it's for the most part, for all intents and purposes, his career is over. He finally hit the wall, and it's dirt road. He finally hit the wall, and now he's having to face the consequences of years and years and years of bad decisions. I don't know what to tell him, and I'm not going to tell him anything. I like the guy. I want him to do well, but these are things that we've had these discussions, and I just tell him what I think, and I just let him go do what he wants. He's a grown-ass man. And when you run into people like this in life that you know, these are adults. Don't argue with them. Don't fight with them. If they say they know what they're doing, you just let them prove it. Because, well, at the end of the day, it's all on them. It's all of it. Every last bit of it. And I don't know what to tell you at this point. I don't know what to tell him at this point. And I'm not going to tell him anything, honestly. Everybody comes to a point in life to where they're just done. You don't waste your time on unfruitful or unprofitable things. And that's where I am with a lot of this. I put the stuff out on YouTube, and I just don't engage with a lot of people about it because y'all are grown-ass people. So you have to figure out where your station in life is. Some people figure it out, some people don't. And unfortunately, he hasn't. So I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, I just kind of sat there. You just sat there and watched the end of a career. But the thing is, he has absolutely no one to blame but himself. Now I know a lot of you guys are asking, well, maybe he has a plan. Maybe you just don't understand what he's doing. Maybe he's building towards something. And I know people like that. I work with people like that. I didn't understand what they were doing. They had a plan. The plan didn't concern me. I didn't bother with it. But I did question him, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, I watched it all come together. These people I'm talking about don't have a plan. Their plan is to make it until tomorrow. That's the extent of it. You know, there's no tomorrow. There's just, can I finish out today? You know, and that's it. Their whole goal is to just make it to the end of the week and hope they make enough to make it to the end of the following week. That's their plan. And it's a piss poor plan. But you wouldn't believe the majority of people I know that is their one and only plan. And guys, y'all need a better plan. Now I'm not talking about those guys that are like, you know, one day I'm gonna, because one day never comes. They say that, but there's been no forward movement towards that day. So guys, keep your chins up, keep your chin up, keep your wits about you, have a plan. Stay away from that wall. Everyone hits that wall. But we all hit the wall in our due time, and sometimes hitting the wall isn't a bad thing. Sometimes it's the worst thing in the world. You know, in this business, trucking is a dead-end job. And you can only go so far before you have to climb over the wall towards the second wall. You know, company driver, owner-operator, business owner. There's only so many rungs. But when you're stuck on the bottom rung and you're just reaching out with nothing to grab, you need to just you got to figure it out. You got to learn how to be really happy with that one rung that you're on. So, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep your wits about you. See you next video.